You just dropped $150 on a brand new motorcycle chain, you bolted it up with fresh Master Link clips, you adjusted the tension perfectly, and the first time you roll out of the garage onto an American highway, you feel that satisfying, smooth pull through the gears that reminds you exactly why you ride. Then 1 month later, you squat down in your driveway and look at what that pristine chain has become, and your stomach drops. There is a thick, syrupy, black-brown sludge coating every single link, every roller, every side plate, caked so densely you can barely even see the metal underneath. You have been doing everything right. After every single ride, you have been dutifully uncapping that $20 can of premium super sticky extreme chain lube from the Big Power Sports brand. You have been coating that chain like they told you, letting it penetrate like they said. And what do you have to show for it? Your chain is already making a grinding noise through first gear. The links are visibly stiff, they are binding as they come around the rear sprocket, and your swing arm is permanently painted with a layer of black aerosol gunk that no degreaser on earth will fully remove. You start doing the math in your head and you realize you are going to need a new chain and sprocket set before this season is even finished, which means another $150 minimum, maybe $250 if you go for the good stuff again. And the worst part is that the guy at the dealership will smile and hand you another $20 can of the exact same spray that just destroyed your drivetrain and tell you that you just need to apply it more consistently. What if I told you that the entire specialty motorcycle chain lube industry is one of the most beautifully engineered consumer scams in American powersports retail, and the actual solution to a flawless, long-lasting, debris-shedding motorcycle chain has been sitting in your local pharmacy or auto parts store for $2 this whole time? I am not talking about some exotic import or some underground racing formula. I am talking about basic, pure mineral oil or standard automatic transmission fluid, the exact same categories of lubricant that veteran long-distance riders running iron butt routes across this country and rogue track mechanics in club racing pits have been using quietly for decades, while everyone else keeps feeding the machine. Stay locked in, because what I am about to show you is going to change the way you think about chain maintenance permanently. And before we go any further, hit subscribe and tap that notification bell right now, because this channel is where the real maintenance knowledge lives, and we are just getting started. Every major powersports brand in America, Maxima, PJ1, WD-40 Specialist, Motul, all of them, they have built a combined multi-million-dollar retail category around a single core product promise, and that promise is stickiness. Walk into any motorcycle dealership parts counter from Los Angeles to Atlanta, and you will see a wall of aerosol cans with names designed to make you feel like you are buying military-grade protection. Ultra sticky formula, no-fling technology, maximum adhesion, ceramic wax infused, white lithium fortified. These are not engineering specifications. These are marketing words engineered specifically to justify a price point and to create a dependency loop that keeps you coming back every single month with your wallet open. The dirty secret that these brands have spent millions of advertising dollars making sure you never think about is this: stickiness is not a feature of a good chain lubricant. Stickiness is the actual mechanism by which your chain is destroyed. And hiding on the shelf of your local Walgreens, your CVS, or your AutoZone, typically right next to the cotton balls and rubbing alcohol or down in the automotive fluid section below the motor oils, is a clear or pale amber bottle of pure mineral oil or a quart of type F or Dexron automatic transmission fluid. The price point on either of these is somewhere between $1.50 and $3, depending on where you live, and neither of them have a motorcycle on the label, which is precisely why the industry does not want you thinking about them. Let us talk about what is actually happening inside your motorcycle chain, because the physics here are not complicated, and once you understand the real engineering of a sealed chain, you will immediately see how completely backwards the commercial lube market has been selling you this whole time. Modern motorcycle chains, and this applies to O-ring chains, X-ring chains, and Z-ring chains across virtually every format from 520 to 530 to 525 pitch, are sealed chains. That word sealed is the key to understanding everything. At the factory, before that chain ever gets packaged, Each individual pin and bushing interface inside every single link is packed with a high viscosity grease, and then that grease is trapped permanently inside by a precision fitted rubber ring that sits in a machined groove between the inner and outer link plates. That rubber ring, whether it is an O-ring with a simple round cross section or an X-ring with that distinctive four-lip cross section that dramatically reduces friction while improving sealing, is doing one critical job. It is keeping the factory grease inside the pin bushing interface forever, or at least for the rated life of the chain, and it is keeping external contamination completely out of that critical load-bearing interface. This means that the deep internal lubrication of your chain, the part that actually handles the enormous torque loads and the bending stress as your chain articulates around the sprocket teeth under full acceleration, is already handled permanently at the factory. You cannot add to it, you cannot improve it. The only external lubrication task that actually matters, the only thing that your post-ride chain maintenance is supposed to accomplish, is lubricating the contact interface between the outer surface of the chain rollers and the face of the sprocket teeth. That is it. That is the entire job. A thin, renewable boundary layer of lubricant at that roller to sprocket contact zone is all that external chain maintenance is supposed to provide. Now take that understanding and look at what a heavy tackifier-loaded commercial chain spray is actually doing to that system. These aerosol formulas use petroleum distillate carrier solvents to get the active lubricating compounds to flow and penetrate into tight spaces during application, but those carriers evaporate quickly after application, and what they leave behind is a dense, waxy, resinous film that is specifically formulated to grip the metal surface as aggressively as possible. That is the no-fling property they advertise. The problem is that this same surface tackiness that prevents the lubricant from flinging off the chain under rotation also functions as an extraordinarily effective collection mechanism for every airborne and road surface contaminant that your motorcycle encounters during a normal ride on American public roads. Think about what your chain is exposed to during a single 100-mile highway run. Microscopic silica particles from road surface aggregate, fine quartz dust from highway construction zones, iron oxide particles shed from brake rotors on vehicles ahead of you, agricultural dust from field operations near rural highways in the Midwest and the South, tire rubber microparticles from highway traffic. Each one of these particle types, and particularly the silica and iron oxide, are genuinely abrasive materials. Silica is essentially sand. Iron oxide particles are hard angular fragments that function similarly to low-grade grinding compound. When these particles contact a dry metal surface, they bounce off or fall away. When they contact a surface coated with a heavy, tacky, adhesive film, they embed. They get trapped in the waxy matrix of your expensive chain lube and they stay there, accumulating with every revolution of your rear wheel, with every mile you put on, until that coating that was supposed to protect your chain has transformed into something that functions mechanically, almost identically to the abrasive compound a machinist uses to lap metal surfaces. We call this the abrasive paste collapse, and it is the single most destructive process happening to your drivetrain on a molecule-by-molecule basis every time you ride. That grinding paste, now intimately mixed into the lube layer sitting against your chain rollers and your sprocket teeth, begins doing exactly what abrasive compounds are designed to do. It removes material, it erodes the case-hardened surface of your sprocket teeth, it grinds away the polymer coating on your chain rollers, and most critically, it works against the outer faces of those rubber O-rings and X-rings, progressively degrading the sealing surface, allowing the protective factory grease to weep out, and allowing road contamination to migrate inward toward the pin bushing interface. Once contamination breaches the ring seal and the factory grease is compromised, the rate of chain wear accelerates exponentially. The links begin to stretch unevenly, chain pitch elongates, and your chain and sprocket set moves toward failure at a rate that can be 2 to 3 times faster than a properly maintained drivetrain. This is not an accident of poor product formulation. This is the logical outcome of a lubrication philosophy that prioritizes visible stickiness over actual tribological performance and it is an outcome that happens to be extraordinarily profitable for the brands selling you, both the chain lube that caused the wear and the replacement chain and sprocket sets that you need afterward. Now let us go deeper on the specific product architecture of the most popular commercial chain sprays, because understanding what is actually in that $20 can is genuinely illuminating. The white lithium aerosol category and the ceramic wax chain spray category both rely on the same fundamental formulation strategy. A light petroleum carrier solvent, typically a naphtha or mineral spirits fraction, is used to dissolve or suspend the active ingredient, which is either lithium stearate soap thickener in the white lithium products or a ceramic particle suspension in the ceramic variants. These products spray on as a relatively fluid liquid that feels like it is penetrating deeply, but within minutes of application, the carrier solvent flashes off, and what remains is essentially a solid or semi-solid waxy deposit bonded to the metal surface. This solid shell has several deeply problematic properties beyond the contamination trapping issue we already discussed. First, because it forms a relatively impermeable barrier coating over the roller surface, it actually blocks fresh lubricant from reaching the metal during subsequent applications. You end up building layer upon layer of contaminated waxy buildup with each spray application until the coating becomes thick enough to crack and flake off in chunks, taking embedded grit particles with it like a sandpaper belt pulling loose. Second, and this is the issue that nobody in the commercial chain lube marketing world wants you examining, that waxy shell traps moisture underneath it against the metal surface. Your chain operates in an environment where it is regularly exposed to rain, morning condensation, road spray, and humidity fluctuations. Water that gets under that waxy outer shell has nowhere to go. It sits against the steel link plates and roller surfaces in an oxygen-limited environment, and it causes electrochemical corrosion, meaning rust, on surfaces you cannot see and cannot access without complete chain removal. Riders find this out when they do a proper deep clean of a chain that looks reasonably acceptable on the outside and discover active red rust pitting on the inner link plate faces and the roller bores. The chain that looks serviceable from 6 inches away is already structurally compromised at the micro level, and you paid $20 per can for the product that made it happen. Mineral oil and automatic transmission fluid work through a completely different mechanism, and that mechanism is why they produce dramatically superior real-world chain life outcomes. Pure mineral oil is a highly refined fraction of petroleum that has been processed to remove the polar aromatic compounds and reactive elements that cause tackiness and oxidation products. What remains is a fluid with extremely low surface tension, a predictable viscosity profile, and essentially zero affinity for solid particles. When you apply a light coating of mineral oil to your chain rollers, the oil wets the metal surface completely due to its low surface tension, forming a continuous hydrodynamic film that allows metal-to-metal contact surfaces to ride on a microlayer of fluid rather than direct solid contact. This is boundary layer lubrication functioning exactly as tribological engineering intends it to function. The critical difference is what happens when that mineral oil-coated chain encounters road grit during a ride. Because mineral oil has no adhesive or tacky components, incoming solid particles do not embed in the lubricant film. The fluid has no holding power over solid contaminants. Particles that contact the oil film are not trapped, they contact the fluid surface, experience essentially zero adhesive force, and are shed by the centrifugal action of the rotating chain before they can accumulate and form the abrasive composite that commercial sticky lubes generate so reliably. The chain stays chemically clean between maintenance intervals because the lubricant itself is actively rejecting contamination rather than collecting it. Automatic transmission fluid performs similarly, with the additional benefit of containing a full additive package including anti-wear agents, rust and oxidation inhibitors, and detergent dispersant chemistry that actively suspends and removes light contamination from metal surfaces. Type F fluid and Dexron 3 are particularly well suited for motorcycle chain application because their viscosity at operating temperature is well matched to the dynamic lubrication requirements of a chain at highway riding speeds. Both of these fluids are engineered to function in transmission environments where metal components are cycling continuously under load in the presence of heat and mechanical stress, which maps closely to the actual operating conditions of a motorcycle chain. The cost differential between these solutions and commercial chain aerosols is almost insulting once you understand the performance picture. A $20 can of commercial chain spray contains roughly 4 to 6 ounces of actual lubricant after you account for the propellant volume, and you are burning through a significant fraction of that with every application because aerosol delivery is inherently inefficient and you inevitably overspray. A $2 bottle of pure mineral oil or a $3 quart of ATF contains enough lubricant to maintain your chain through an entire riding season and then some, applied precisely and with zero waste using the rag application method. Now here is the exact protocol, and I need you to follow this step by step because the effectiveness of this method and critically the safety of it depend on application technique, and one of the steps in this process carries a warning that is genuinely life critical, not a legal disclaimer, not a cover your ass caveat, an actual safety critical instruction that you need to hardwire into your maintenance routine from this moment forward. Step 1 is chain cleaning, and you cannot skip this or shortcut it. Get a clean rag dampened with kerosene or a dedicated chain cleaner and work it thoroughly around the entire chain while slowly spinning the rear wheel by hand. Kerosene is the correct solvent here because it dissolves petroleum deposits and carbon buildup effectively while being gentle enough that it will not attack the rubber O-ring or X-ring seals if you are careful to work it on the price. External surfaces only. If you have heavy caked-on buildup from previous commercial lube applications, use a soft bristle brush along with your kerosene rag to work through the accumulated debris around the rollers and side plates. Take your time on this step. A chain going into the lubrication step needs to be genuinely clean, not just wiped off, actually clean, with no residual gummy deposits from previous lube applications. Step 2 is complete drying. After your kerosene wipe down, you need to go back over the entire chain with a fresh, completely dry rag and make sure no solvent residue remains. Let the chain sit for a few minutes in open air to ensure complete evaporation of any kerosene that penetrated into the roller gaps. Step 3 is the lubrication application, and the key word here is minimal. Take a clean microfiber or cotton rag and apply just a few drops of your mineral oil or ATF to a 2-inch section of the rag. You want the rag just barely wetted, not saturated, not dripping, barely damp with the fluid. Spin the rear wheel slowly by hand and present the inside of the chain to the lightly oiled section of your rag, allowing the fluid to transfer onto the inner roller surfaces as the chain passes through your hand. Work your way around to ensure the full chain circumference receives that thin initial coating. Step 4 is the critical warning, and I need you to read the next section of this twice because getting this wrong will kill you. After applying your mineral oil or ATF using the rag method, you must, and this is not optional, you must go over the entire chain with a completely clean, completely dry microfiber cloth and remove every trace of excess fluid from the outer surfaces of the chain. The chain should appear uniformly lightly coated with no visible drips, no wet spots, no fluid pooling in the link gaps, nothing that looks wet. This matters because of what happens the moment you pull out of your driveway and lean into your first corner at any meaningful speed. A motorcycle chain spinning at highway speed generates substantial centrifugal force on every fluid particle sitting on its outer surfaces. If you leave excess oil on the chain, that centrifugal force will throw droplets and streams of that oil off the chain in a radial pattern at high velocity. The primary target of that ejected fluid is your rear tire, specifically the edge of your rear tire tread, the exact contact zone that is engaged when your bike is leaned in a corner. Motor oil and ATF on a tire contact patch reduce the coefficient of friction between rubber and asphalt to something approaching 0. There is no warning, there is no gradual fade. The rear wheel breaks traction instantaneously, and the result in a leaned corner at highway speed is a high side crash. People die from this. I am not using dramatic language for engagement. This is a documented crash mechanism. Wipe the chain completely dry of excess fluid before every single ride, without exception, every single time, and if you ever question whether you got it dry enough, go back and wipe it again. The protocol only works and only stays safe when the finish is a chain that is internally coated with a micro-thin lubricating film and externally clean to the touch. Step 5 is your final check. Spin the rear wheel by hand one more time and visually inspect the chain through its full rotation. It should look uniformly clean and only barely glossy compared to a completely dry chain. There should be no dripping, no throwing of fluid as it spins, nothing that could suggest excess lube is present. If you see anything that concerns you, wipe again. Now, let us put the economics and the performance outcomes side by side, because the contrast is the kind of thing that should make any rider genuinely angry once they see it clearly. $20 for a can of commercial chain spray that actively traps road abrasives, builds up into a contaminated paste, traps moisture against the metal causing hidden rust, and drives your chain and sprocket set toward accelerated wear that ends with a $200 drivetrain replacement bill, all while gumming up your swing arm and rear wheel with a layer of black sludge that takes an hour of scrubbing to partially remove. Or $2 for a bottle of mineral oil or a quart of ATF that provides genuine hydrodynamic boundary lubrication, actively sheds road contamination instead of collecting it, keeps your chain and sprocket surfaces clean and visually inspectable at a glance, protects the rubber seals from abrasive assault, and delivers a drivetrain that runs quietly, shifts cleanly, and reaches the rated service life printed on the packaging instead of dying at half that mileage. Long-distance riders who cover 20,000 miles a year on this continent, the people running 2-up loads on cross-country routes from New York to Los Angeles, I have been using this approach for years, and the chain longevity data they report in the long-distance riding communities is consistent. Properly maintained chains on sealed modern motorcycle drivetrains using light oil application routinely achieve service lives that exceed the manufacturer's rated mileage by a substantial margin when road grit is not being collected, and concentrated against the chain components by a sticky, tacky commercial formula. The industry does not want you knowing this. They want you buying another can of ceramic wax chain spray next month and a new chain before summer is over. Share this video with every rider in your circle right now, every person in your group chat, every friend you know who is out there faithfully spraying expensive sticky aerosols onto their drivetrains and wondering why their chains look like they belong in a coal mine after 30 days. Put this information in front of them before their next road trip so they can protect their chains, protect their wallets, and get back to what actually matters, which is putting miles on this country's roads instead of standing in a parts store buying another replacement drivetrain that should have lasted twice as long. Subscribe, share this, and we will keep blowing the lid off every overpriced scam in your garage, one video at a